Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming. This is another episode of Wireframe brought to you by Design Systems House. I'm your host, Dan Abramov, and today we're going to be talking about Atproto. And granted, a lot of the times we talk more about design here, but there's definitely some development that I talk about. I mean, I've been doing stuff on the web for a very long time, close to 30 years now. So lots of web in my bones and in my blood. And I have another person on the show today that I'm very excited to bring on the show. I have Dan Abramov. Dan, great to have you here. I really appreciate you coming on the show on a Friday. I'm glad to connect this in a week, basically. We got kind of connected just on Tuesday, and we got you here on Fridays, which was awesome. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so tell the folks who you are over there, what you've been doing, I guess how you are in the space.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a developer. I've been I've been involved in a bunch of open source stuff, mostly in the React ecosystem. I used to work on React itself for some number of years, and then I used to work on the Blue Sky social app client for a couple of years, and then I used to not do anything for like a year, and
fun.
now I work on Next.js. So part-time, trying to make it better.
That's great. That's great. I mean, I think from what I know about you, which is a little bit, I think what I've seen of you is that it looks like one of your main goals overall is to make things better. Is that right?
Well, I think I have really low tolerance for like my tools being annoying, and that actually ends up pretty useful in that type of work because I think like people like with tools you often kind of just get used, especially like if you use them for a while, you kind of get used to how broken they are, and you kind of just you don't pay attention to it anymore. And so this is something that I try to be conscious of, is just to try to still channel that beginner energy of like, why is this, this thing sucks, it doesn't do what I want, this tool doesn't, like, it's inconvenient to hold, and so on. And so I think that is part of what I bring to the table. And the other thing that I try like kind of care about is just communication on both sides, like both from kind of hearing what the users say and kind of bringing that to the team, and then hearing what the team says and trying to like bring it back to the users and kind of having like, kind of helping be the bridge, like on the, input-output boundary of a project.
Yeah, I love that. And it really aligns to stuff that like I do from a UX side, right? Because in the UX side, all we're really trying to do is help out the user, right? And generally speaking, when we're talking about UX, it's usually very graphical, right? But there's definitely some user experience or really developer experience, I think that you're really focusing on out there to improve the way that we build software and the way that we interact with software. And I know that I appreciate it. I'm sure there's other folks that are watching right now that appreciate it. Speaking of people who are watching, I do see the live chat, which no one's taught anything yet. But if you are watching live and you want to ask Dan something, I will certainly forward it on here live on the show and put him on the spot and get him a little sweaty. But I'm sure it'll be fine because Dan's a professional out here. But we're not going to be talking about React today, okay? Because I'm sure Dan's had enough of React. We're going to be talking about something that he's clearly passionate about because he was so excited. He's like, put me on a podcast. I'm like, I got one of those. Dan, what is up with Atproto? What is this all about?
Yeah, actually, before we start, I wanted to ask you, like,
Sure.
where is the actual URL that people can watch this? Like, I wanted to post it, but I don't know where the URL is.
So the URL, you could go to wireframe.ds.house. which should have
Yep.
been in the post that I posted earlier today, got kind of like launching. And then on the top left-hand corner, there's a thing that says episodes. That goes right to the YouTube page, and the
Oh,
YouTube page has the stream right there.
awesome.
So you can.
I'll just post this now so people can find it.
Sounds good. I mean, we got apparently 6 people so far watching. So, but we're gonna go ahead and use Dan's social media conglomeracy to go ahead and absolutely take down the stream with the amount of interest that's going to come in right now.
I don't think that many people like read me on Blue Sky. I think I've kind of fallen off, but
I don't know.
yes,
We got some.
I
We
have
got some.
posted it.
I don't know. We got some good. I guess some buzz. I got a couple good followers at it. I'll say. So I think you helped me out a little bit there. Maybe I can help you out.
Okay.
But you're all posted over there. You're good.
Yeah, I just posted it, so
Super.
it's good.
Okay. So then now, yeah. So let's get into the Atproto. What is Atproto, and why are you so excited about it?
Yeah, this is actually like, I don't know where to start because I think the way you would explain it to different audiences is kind of different, right? Like, I think the kind of like one way that I guess like like one of the entry points is maybe that it's a protocol. It's like an internet protocol, like an actual internet protocol. Like we have like HTTP or like SMTP or whatever. It's just like an actual internet protocol for like some people would say that it's for like social media or like social like post and following, like all of that kind of stuff. I think it's slightly misleading, but that is like one way to explain it is if we take a product, for example, like Twitter, right? Like Blue Sky is a product that kind of looks like Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
but it's built on the open web.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually, it isn't like the stuff that we post. It doesn't really live like in a a single company's database, but it's more like it kind of lives on the web, and then the like the Blue Sky app can aggregate it. And so in a sense, like if you're familiar with technologies of the past, I like to explain it as being somewhat similar to RSS
Okay.
in spirit. Like not exactly, but I think like in spirit, it's kind of like, like the relationship between RSS and something like Google Reader,
Mm-hmm.
where, RSS is kind of where the content could be like on your own blog or like like owned by you in some meaningful sense because you could self-host it, you could change hosting, but an app like Google Reader can aggregate from all of those hosts. I think like Atproto is kind of similar, but it says, what if we could build like any app this way, not just for like aggregating blog posts, but like microblogging or something like Pinterest or something like GitHub or like just completely different social apps. What if they all kind of behaved in this way? So that is kind of like, if I try to describe it through the shape, is it's like a way for apps to build apps that aggregate data from like user controlled hosts. But I think the big picture is really more about that it changes the relationship between the user, the developer, and the product.
Okay.
And I think that is actually like the exciting thing for me is it just feels like it creates new types of things you can do with products. Like, for example, you can fork a product with all of its users. So you can kind of, like if you don't like something about how Blue Sky works or something about like how Tangled, which is Atproto GitHub, works, or like any of those projects, you can kind of make your own product that incorporates all of their existing data and all of their existing users. And so if you want to compete on products, as a developer, you're actually not like, you don't have to convince everybody to move to your platform first to get some content on there. It's kind of like all the content from all the apps is already there, and you can just when you build an app, you kind of can build a new lens over this entire, like we call it atmosphere. It's kind of the web of Atproto that lives like on normal web. So you kind of build like each app is kind of like a lens or like a a projection of all this existing data that exists in the cloud from all different apps. And so I think it just like changes how the market works and how we can kind of create this like cross app experiences where like data from one app could be correlated with like data from another app and like mashed together, remixed enhanced, and so on, without like each of these companies or like each of these apps having to like give permission or like even like talking to each other.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of the big idea, is really what if the things that we create through social apps kind of behaved like files with formats, and then every app could aggregate from all those files and present it as some kind of user experience that this particular developer wants.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I did read the post that I think someone referred me to in the thread that you made about being Atproto being files. That was actually really helpful. Put in the show notes or later. But I like what you're saying about the RSS, because like RSS for me is very nostalgic, and I think it's really important. Because one of my first apps I made was actually all RSS based. It was a weather app that was pretty much giving you updates of the weather through RSS. So I'm aligned with what you're saying over there. I think I guess the next question I'd have in there ultimately is like, for something, we already have a lot of data that's flying around, right? We have people who have personal sites that have data out there, and it's all in like different formats. I mean, RSS itself was in a different form. It's like it has a specification. So are there specifications for other kinds of data, or is it all kind of just still a little bit of us trying to figure it all out? Is where are we sitting right now for that?
You mean with Atproto specifically?
I guess, I mean, that's what we're talking about today, right? So it's if we're talking about these different files that you're able to read and pull in from and then aggregate together, I feel like in order to do that, you need to have a specification so that the
Right.
ingester knows what the heck they're about to get, right? So is that
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, I mean that is what Atproto is, right? Like
Okay.
it's the minimal kind of um it's kind of opinionated in a bunch of places, but it has like a few pieces that I think you need for building realistic apps on top of this model. So some of the opinions are things are stored in repositories, which is kind of like Git a little bit, although like not quite. It's not um, like you can actually delete things. It's not like blockchain where it's like immutable forever. It's more, I guess, like it's more like Git where you can rebase. But things are stored like in a repository with a specified format. There are different implementations of these repositories. So there's the one that Blue Sky wrote that's like open source. There's also like a few alternative ones. So it's really like the protocol doesn't specify, how the data is laid out on the disk. It's just about the HTTP and the WebSocket communication format for how to, what gets submitted, like what's the public API of this thing. But it's essentially a server that is, it has like it stores this repository. The actual data in the repository is JSON, but it is stored in a particular. Again, there's like a binary encode. I think it's a compact binary object represent a CBOR or something like this. Like basically like a way to serialize JSON to binary in a way that's like it's I think it's like sorted or something. So there's some kind of like canonical JSON representation.
Okay.
So like it's stored in a particular way, and it's organized in a particular way. So there's actually like in Atproto, every piece of content, again, it's kind of like a JSON object or like a JSON file. It has a so it has a key. So that's kind of like the file name. Usually these are like derived from timestamps, but there's like a few different formats, and you could also have some like freedom there as a developer. And then they're organized into collections. And collections are kind of, I think, the most like important maybe concept there. You can kind of think of this as like if you sorted files on your computer by format, right? You would put like all PDFs together with PDFs, all like JPEGs together with JPEGs, and so on. It's kind of similar, but for kinds of JSON. And so the actual formats are things like a Blue Sky post, right? Like that's like post with text and whatever, or like a Blue Sky follow, which is like a link to like the user that you follow, or like a tangled repository, right? That's like repository description. like a tangled, tangled is like another Atproto app. Tangled star, when you like star repository on tangled, it creates a tangled star, and that's also like JSON with like link to repository. So you can see that these like, and so these are kind of like folders in your repo.
Okay.
So each person gets one repository with all of these collections. And as you can see, the collections themselves are app specific. So the protocol doesn't specify what like a post is or a follow or what types of applications can exist.
Oh, interesting.
It's really all like, as developer, you can create your own like formats, your own collections. And that is why it's like so extensible, is that it doesn't actually have opinions on like what you store. It just says it's pieces of JSON with like the kind of serialized to particular format, and that can have links to each other. And so this is like another big idea of Atproto, is it's kind of like HTML web is like HTML with links, and then Atproto is kind of like JSON with links to other JSON.
Okay. So, well, am I saying this? I might be saying this too simply, but I guess the web as we've known it for the past 30, 40 years now has been links effectively serving up HTML, right? Is this effectively links serving up JSON? Is that effectively what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's the link serving up JSON with a few kind of twists.
Okay.
One twist is that it's these links are designed, like the format is designed so that they survive change of hosting.
Oh.
So this is kind of interesting. Like on the internet, I guess, like from the user-centric perspective, right? Like that also happens, like in a sense, because the DNS allows it.
Right.
Right. So you can change where your site is hosted, but that doesn't kind of break it. So this is a bit similar, although it's not rooted in DNS, it's rooted in identity. And that's like a whole separate subject. But anyway, the big idea is just you should be able to take your repository from whoever your existing provider is, and then like move it to another provider, or like self-host it, or whatever, like maybe transform your computer that has like a permanent IP or whatnot. But it doesn't break any links. So it's kind of this like long-living web of JSON.
That's actually really cool because, one of the things that I struggle with is just having tons of domain names and being like, well, I can't justify continuing to have this domain name because it's too expensive or whatever. And then what ends up happening is, because that domain goes down and I don't do nice redirects, things will be broken. In fact, if you go to like Complementary Space, which was a website that I did like 2 years ago, which I no longer own, I think it goes somewhere else that's not so nice. I'd have to so like it's things like that it can come to mind for sure. I remember a website I had a long time ago that was like my handle for gaming, because it got so much traffic back then. That turned into like some Israeli like e-commerce site afterwards. It was just wild. But yeah, I really like the idea of this identity that stays with you. This is a really interesting concept because, like, how do you know if something's authentic, right? Especially, we're talking about AI stuff that's all over the place in social media. How do you know if something's authentic? And I guess before that, people were, I think, considering about the blockchain, being like, oh, well, if it starts here and we could identify that this person is legitimate through these means, and we could follow the trail, then we could follow all the articles that this person put, all the media, all the other artifacts that they've made, and they could be sure that this was made by this person versus being illegitimate. So is that accurate in terms of the identity kind of idea that Atproto is trying to get at?
It's related to it.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting because, like sometimes I like to think of like Atproto is like Web3, the good parts.
Yeah, okay.
Which is, the cryptography, like not the everything has to be like in a single log. Because like web doesn't work this way, right? Like on the web, you don't have like a single log of like where every website, like appends something. That's, that's like a bottleneck. Like you kind of want to distribute it. It's fine if people delete things, like things should be deletable. It's fine if people like edit things even, and so on. But it does, like, yes, like identity is kind of, it combines like if you think of like, there's this concept of a did document, which is okay. It's like a technical term,
That's like
but that is
decentralized, right? That's what the D is, decentralized ID or whatever. I think that's what I heard before.
yeah. Although there is a paradox that, like, in a sense, that is the most centralized part of the system. But that is something to maybe discuss separately.
Okay.
Um, but the thing that identifies you is essentially also a piece of JSON that stores I think like three essential things. It's like one is your current handle, so kind of
Okay.
like your username, like how do people know you, like how are you presented to the world, and that is mutable, so it can change over time. You can change your handle over time. Another thing is where your content is, so where's your hosting, like who's holding your stuff. So that is like some provider or your own like your own server or whatever. This is something you can change over time. And the third thing is your public key. So how your content can be verified that it's actually like coming from you. And in a sense, you can think of it, it's almost like a passport, right? It's like what your name is, where you live, and like what is your like signature.
Wow.
So that that is like your like identity. And Atproto is like these three things together, and then only you can update them over time. But they're like updatable, so it's not like stuck in a
Okay.
particular way. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, like you asked about, the guardrails that like Atproto probably needs to create for like to actually syndicate this stuff. So Atproto has like the protocol itself, it kind of builds on top of HTTP, JSON, DNS, and WebSockets. And WebSockets are kind of for fast updates, right? Like if you want to aggregate from like millions of repositories, you do want that to be like fast, real time. It shouldn't be like trying to load like RSS feeds and so on. So this is what like the WebSocket part is for. And crucially, the data itself is self-certifying. So this is kind of like Git, where the stream of the data contains signed commits, like signed deltas. And so this is actually like if what allows people to, like other services, to verify that even if you like cache them in the middle, or there's a service that like retransmits everyone's commits, you don't have to trust it because it retransmits the proofs that they're authentic. And this is the A in AT, like the authenticated transfer.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, okay. I'm getting to put together. I'm picking up what you're putting down a little bit. Because let me be honest, of course, because when we connected, I mentioned in the thread about how I barely didn't know anything about what was going on Blue Sky and Atproto. I've seen a lot about it clearly because that's the platform that many of us moved to after the big Xification. But I've been seeing, before I get to the seeing stuff, I remember when I was able to attach my domain name to my handle, I was like, duh, like that's great. Like that's actually identifying who I am out here and being so that like you can't take my handle, right? Like people are like, going for handles. Like I think WhatsApp right now is like allowing you to have handles. And I remember seeing a post where someone just grabbed OpenAI and was like, "Yep, you're gonna have that." And I'm like, "Oh wow, this is a real thing that people could do out there apparently." So it's super interesting about people just grabbing handles left, right, and center. Meanwhile, you have the ability under this protocol to be like, "No, like this has been my place on the web under this domain, and it's now attached to me." So you know how I operate across the web, so to speak. So I really liked that about Blue Sky, but I didn't really recognize how big this movement has the potential of being until kind of recently. There's been a couple of meetups here in New York about Atproto, actually, that I want to get an opportunity to go to. But the thing that really I saw blow up that I got, I don't want to say uncomfortable with, but more so like it was like over my head, was all of the standard site stuff. So there's a whole bunch of talk about standard site on Blue Sky, specifically related to publications, right? So if you have a publication site, a blog, some kind of news site or what have you, you can adapt this thing called standard site. Now, granted, Real talk, I had Claude go ahead and look at the thing and just like vibe it for my blog because I don't know what, it was very overwhelming to me. And I actually don't even know if it's working yet because I actually haven't posted on the blog since, and hopefully I have an opportunity to do so. But is there an easy way? I mean, first off, I have to ask you if you're familiar with that. But the second thing is, if you are, okay, have a nod. Since you are, can you explain a little bit more about what the standard site situation is and the benefit of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm the best, but like I'm also sometimes confused by it, so I'm
Okay,
not sure
okay,
I'm the best person to. But I can explain my understanding of what it is.
good enough for me.
Um, it's kind of like RSS on Atproto is like how I like to think about it. So it's kind of like um, you use the same mechanism, like when, for example, when you post on Blue Sky, it really just means creating a record of type Blue Sky post, like in your repository, right? And then the standard site is kind of similar for websites. So like if you own a website, you can say this website is associated with this Atproto account. So this is something you specify in HTML, I believe.
Okay.
And then the other part is now you can start like if you start publishing records of type standard site publication. I think that if I'm not mistaken about the names, but there's like a record type that describes the site itself.
Okay.
And there's a record type that describes a post. And I think usually it doesn't include the post's content. It's kind of more like here's like a post was published with this name like at this time and so on. So it's kind of like an index of which posts exist. But you can think of it as for sites that adopted it, it's kind of like sitemap maybe,
Okay.
but it is you can subscribe to it, like all of them through Atproto, like existing infrastructure. So for example, as a developer, I can build an index of like all sites that adopted standard site, and they will kind of automatically, like I can make it searchable, right? Or I can show like as soon as there's a new article on any of them, it will immediately show up on my site. Or like I can build like an aggregator, or I can build like I can build a Atproto app that shows what are top liked if there's like a like button, maybe like top liked posts from my Blue Sky follows that like my Blue Sky follows have liked, that have like standard site publications and so on. So it just kind of brings like the webby blogs into that Atproto world. So it's kind of like a bridge between them.
Okay. I think I understand that now because of what we've been talking about so far about, you had that Blue Sky post that is represented as like this blob inside of the Atproto kind of, or atmosphere. I guess that this probably makes sense now. So now what standard site has effectively done is it says, okay, well, you had the post, you had the identity. Now we need something that describes an article or a post. And that's what standard site is trying to kind of push, is this idea of like, okay, this is what a post is on the internet, on the atmosphere. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
Okay.
sort of. And because it is like like Atproto itself is app agnostic, right? Like Atproto as a protocol, it doesn't know anything about Blue Sky, it doesn't know anything about standard site. It's really just like how we store JSON with specific type. And then the type is the format is actually specified by the developer with a type definition, and they're scoped by domain. So that is like another neat thing, is like types are kind of like types in Java. If I don't know if you're like remember,
I know
like
TypeScript,
com
so
dot
I can do that at least. Is that close?
sort of, but it's kind of namespaced by the domain,
Okay.
right? So like the Blue Sky app types are app.bsky dot something.
Okay.
So it's kind of like reverse domain, like in the reverse direction. But essentially it's scoped per domain. So if I'm an app developer, like people who specify standard site, they literally bought a domain called standard.site,
Right.
or maybe site.standard. And then if it's reversed, it becomes standard site something. But the important part is just like anyone can make a format. It's not, it's not gate kept. Like you don't need permission from anybody to do that. And I believe standard site was actually, it was kind of like a community thing that fell out of, there were multiple blogging apps on Atproto. One is Leaflet, another is Pact. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Okay.
Pact. Another is Offprint. And I think they wanted to be interoperable so that you can follow a person in like one app, and then you can see like you can see their posts in another app or something like this. And that is why they all like from what I understand,
Okay.
they all standardized on using this format, or they're called lexicons. So that they created this lexicon so that all this stuff is interoperable. And then the Blue Sky app added like fancy preview cards. So if you share a link from a site that uses standard site integration, then it shows up with like brand color because the JSON has the brand color. So this is an example of like things from like multiple products can kind of interoperate, showing the same data. And then that data can show up in another app, like this like brand color that you specify in like Leaflet shows up in Blue Sky because Blue Sky ingests information like from the same sources. So I kind of think of it as like a multiverse of products where the boundaries between different products kind of start blurring, and the things are kind of interlinked.
Oh my
Which is
God.
like what web should have been like.
Wait a minute. So I was about to throw a whole wrench into the thing, but that last thing that you just said right there really got me some kind of way, I'll have to say. So let me first kind of orate a little bit about that before I throw the wrench in, because the thing that I've been thinking about, and it's in my book at toward the end of it, about how websites are really different expressions of the same stuff, right? You have a button, you have a form field, you have some text, but we're expressing it in different ways through brands and through personalization and all this stuff. And there's a lot of work that goes into expressing that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you think of things like Google Shopping, which effectively is just showing a list of products from all over the place, but it's all just kind of Googleified. And I don't even say Googleified in terms of anything that's like clearly Google, as much as it's just like a blank page with a search and a whole bunch of products, right? So that's the kind of thing that I was thinking about, is saying like, why not just kind of reduce everything down to a user getting the thing that they want, and then allowing an expression to be put on top of it so that it makes sense to the user. So you effectively have those two things. You have the data, right, which is like the shopping, the products, all that stuff, and then you have the expression you put on top. It's the form follows function thing from like UX part speak. So it's effectively separating those two things. So what it sounds like I'm hearing from you is this is effectively the data layer that can sit amongst this new web, so to speak, where now people are able to create these new harnesses, so to speak, that are basically like, here, we know this data exists out there and it exists out over here and over here. I'm going to go ahead and put all that data together to make a new thing. And it's going to be, it's not my data. It's all the other people's data, but I'm going to bring all that data in and I'm going to express it kind of in my own way, or make it useful to people, or what have you. Right now, I love that. Let me remember the wrench that I was going to throw in what you were talking about. One moment. Maybe it'll come to me. If it doesn't come to me in the next couple of seconds, then I'm just going to move on. But I just got so caught up in that last thing that you said that really, again, excites me. Maybe it'll come back to me later.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. No, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, here it is. So the thing that I was thinking about was the XKCD comic, which is there were, 15 competing standards, now there's 16, right? And it sounded like that was effectively the story that I just heard out of Standard Site, which was, okay, you have Leaflet, you have Offprint, you have all this stuff, and then sure, they all came together to agree, except now they all still exist and people were using bits and pieces or whatever. So in this world, we were talking about standards a little bit earlier. In this world where effectively anybody can create a standard, is there a worry, a concern about having the 1,500 competing standards? Like, how do you, where does that leave us?
Yeah. Well, I think it's It's kind of like, you could say the same thing about Atproto itself, right? You could say, oh, it's just like yet another step. Like I got a RSS, like that's all I need. Or I got this like Twitter account, and that's all I need, right? I think the justification for Atproto is that there is just no standard that allows to kind of to do the same things. I think, like we don't. There are some competing, I think, standards like ActivityPub and Nostr that have like very different philosophies. In some way, they're similar. In some way, they're like very different. So there's like some competition there. But I think like for this kind of shape of things, where like the model, like the data layer for the web is how I think about this, like a people-centered data layer for the web. I think Atproto is kind of unique, and or like it's like good enough to build on. And then within Atproto, of course, I think you can think of it as a spectrum. Like and I think Atproto has actually taken a very pragmatic stance here, where by default, I would say you're encouraged to always make up your own format. So if you're creating a new app, like say like a new blogging platform, or like a new like new Pinterest-like thing, or like a GitHub clone or whatever, you just define your own formats as your own thing. Like Blue Sky did not consult with anybody to ask what a Blue Sky post should be. Like that is their decision. And so that is kind of the starting point, is like everybody just makes up their own standard, right? Like it's like not 15 of them, it's like one per app, which is the status quo on the web in general, right? It's kind of each app has its own, the way each app stores its stuff in its closed database is specific to that app.
Okay.
So that is the status quo, is there are no standards, except that now each of these things, because they're open, they're kind of accidental standards. So like if one of them becomes popular, there's incentives to piggyback on it, maybe build some stuff around it, maybe build a thing that converts between two, or like maybe build a thing, maybe build a competitor that's different and making different choices, or maybe like for them to start talking to each other and actually decide, oh, let's just use the same format that plays into both of our hands. So I think it's really like Atproto creates this stage for very dynamic kind of styles, where you can do your own thing without talking to anyone, or you can try to standardize, or like things gradually kind of converge sometimes where it makes sense for the user. But it's kind of like file formats. I think the parallel for me is file formats, where some apps decide to eventually adopt like a shared format like JPEG or PNG or like SVG and so on. And some may use like proprietary formats, and like that's fine. And sometimes there's like tools that convert between them. So it's really like all of these things are possible, and this ability to like move on the spectrum or like try different things is what I think makes Atproto special, because you generally like don't have that ability on the web.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I'll tell you what, like, when you were first saying about, you could basically make up whatever you want, my traditional design systems mind was a little bit scared. I was like, wait a minute. We don't want people just making shit up out here. That's going to be the Wild Wild West. But it's funny because I had to quell that a little bit, because admittedly, the thing that I've been preaching from my practice of design systems is this organic kind of, hey, everybody, let's try to, settle on something. And the only way that we could settle on something is by bringing it out in the world openly, right? And in a open standard, which is what I'm hearing this is, in this open standard, it's all out there. So you can either choose to adopt a thing that's already out there, or you can go ahead and say, well, that's not exactly what I was thinking about. Maybe I can use some parts of it and then improve upon it, or it's anything near what I wanted, so I'm going to make my own situation. And then as people kind of naturally settle on, oh, okay, this is what a post is supposed to be, this is what a article is supposed to be, it naturally settles into these things, and they naturally settle into standards, as opposed to having this rigid process that everyone has to go through that just ends up being like, kind of just, it takes so long. Like I'm in the design tokens community group standard, and that has been around since 2020, and it's 6 years now. And there's still parts of it that are left to be desired, right? Meanwhile, in an open standard like what you're talking about here, just introducing something into the ether and being like, "Yep, this is what this is what I'm using, and maybe this is something you want to use too." It's just getting that out in the open. I think this is really cool.
Yeah, but even like in the design world, I think it's a good parallel because I would say I would expect like most companies they have their own design systems. They're not coming to each other and like let's create a universal design system. They just make their own, and that is the default. But then there are some design systems like material design or whatever that are kind of like share things you can kind of piggyback on. And so I think that is similar. And also like even for something like a post, it is very application specific because like for example the decision that a post cannot be longer than like 300 characters, right? Like it makes sense for the Blue Sky app, that is like their product decision, whereas for some other app maybe that doesn't make sense, or they want to have like a list of tags or whatever, right? So it's like it's actually product driven data design, and then some products can decide that actually they agree on the shape of the data, or maybe they want to like embed it into each other and so on. And so that is when they collaborate.
Super. Yeah, that's really cool. Because I'm even getting ideas. I made my own MCP server last year, and I had to make up effectively my own data format when I was doing that, because that MCP server was effectively serving from my personal site, from my blog, from my design system, and all going into
Yeah, yeah.
one space. And I had to make that up, and I felt kind of weird because I'm expecting MCP to have, a standard. And I had to kind of all make that up and stuff like this. Ended up just being markdown files at the end of the day. But I'm now getting like some inspiration here about, oh, I could, effectively have my sites prepared for Atproto also, so that it could be ingested in different kinds of data types or what have you in a similar way, like I did with the MCP, like we used to do with RSS, and even SEO keywords from back in the day. Like it's all effectively data that we're trying to serve up to places for them to use, to let people know what we're doing, right? To connect, like
Yeah.
socially, effectively. So I really like the essence of what's going on in here. I think the thing that is the big challenge, at least for me, is again, I'm doing web stuff for a long time, but I never called myself a computer scientist at all, and I think some of the stuff ends up being a little bit out of my wheelhouse. So what kind of things could you tell folks that are out there that are potentially getting excited about this technology, about this social ability to share data, and how could people like easily get started, or where would you direct them to like feel more comfortable about all this?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because I think a lot of the tooling is still like not great. Like
Mm,
it's like it's usable, but it's a bit hard to, if you're like making a new app, there's um like the big problem is I think there's kind of like a fork in the road. Like they want to make a new app with your own data. So like let it, like your app specific, like you don't want to use any existing data from the network. Or do you want to do something with the data that already exists? Because if it already exists, you need to kind of aggregate it first, right? And you need to index it. So it's kind of like there's this, the architecture of any of like a classical Atproto app is, I would say, there's the atmosphere, which is all these like servers where user specific data actually lives, kind of like the blogosphere.
okay.
It's like this like the cloud of JSON that is kind of distributed, and it may live on different servers and whatever. But then if you're building an app, you really want to aggregate from it into your database so that you can then, like, from that point, it's a normal web app. Because if you got everything you need into the database and you're like continuing to subscribe so that like all of that stuff drops into your database as soon as it's created, then the rest of the work is just the normal web app where you can run queries against the database. You can like, sort things, filter things, join them, and so on. And so it's just like this part of like, how do you get all the stuff from the atmosphere that's relevant to your app? Because, like Blue Sky is like the domineering app. There's like thousands of events per second concerning like Blue Sky records. So maybe you don't care about that. And so there is tooling that does it. So you really just like subscribe to like a specific WebSocket, like pipe that somebody's running, that just puts all of that into your, into your app, and then you decide how to, like, what to store in your database. But it is a bit, it's harder to get started than just an app. It's kind of like a database above the database, right? It's like we've pushed data from out of everyone's databases into this like user-centric layer, and now we need some way for it to flow down. And so there are tools for this that do it, but it's a bit. I think that is like a barrier.
It is a barrier, because when you say database of a database, I immediately was scared. I was immediately like, oh shit, like because I can't query my way out of a database very easily.
I think it's kind of like making an RSS reader.
Okay,
like
that's better for me. Okay,
reader, you have to get all the RSS from everybody into your thing. But again, there are like there are tools that do this automatically. Like they're just gonna I want data of this format from like everyone, put it into my database, and then from that point on, it's just a normal web application. But there's also like other ways. So some people have been using a service called Constellation. So if you search for maybe, let's see, Constellation Atproto, if I Google that, yeah, I can find it easily. So this is like there is a person who runs it. It's like a community project, but it has already indexed all the links that exist between different records. So it's a way to kind of build a bunch of like you can kind of build some Atproto products without even having a database, because you can just grab stuff from Constellation. So as an example, like if you know the post URL, like I said, like there's like links between JSON. For example, if you like a post, like if you like somebody's post, it's you creating a like record that links to that post. And so what Constellation lets you do is it's already indexed them all. So you can say, give me all likes for a given post. And it's just going to give you like results from all over the network, kind of like pingbacks in the old, Blogger days.
Okay.
But it applies to any relationship between any pieces of data, right? So it could be like, give me all the stars for this Tangled repo, or like, give me all collections for this like, Pinterest clone thing, like a board, and so on. So it's kind of like a way to, like if you don't want to aggregate stuff yourself, you can fall back on Constellation quite a bit. But I would say the most foundational thing is really just to understand the shape of the system. So what is a repository? And the tool that I would recommend is PDSLS. I don't know if you have like like a screen share or whatever, but if you just go to pds.ls and open you input your profile, your Atproto username, you're gonna see a list of all it's like a repo explorer.
Okay.
So you can see like everything that's in your repo, all the collections that are there, all the records, and I think that really gives you the mental model for like how the entire thing works. Okay. So I would highly recommend just spend a bunch of time in PDSLS, and I think you'll kind of get it.
Okay. That's a good, and I'll try to put that in the show notes so that people can grab it and take a peek over there. Because I think I did try to take a peek in there when I was doing the standard site stuff, because that was some of the early on tutorials were like, oh, look in the PDLS. Is that right? Did I say that right?
PDSLS. It's like PDS is a personal data server. That's their name for like the server that hosts the repos.
Okay.
And ls is like list, like in Unix you have, that's how you list files.
Got it. Oh, ls and list. Okay, got it. Yes. Okay. Yes.
PDSLS.
PDSLS.
.ls. Yes.
.ls. Okay. Well, I'm sure I could Google it or find it on Blue Sky. We'll find it. You put it in there for sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also ask you one more thing before, because we're getting close to the end here. But I want to ask you one more thing, which was, oh man, my brain's not working for this particular show. I don't know why. I think I need to connect myself to the atmosphere, and maybe I'll get all the data I need. Is there anything that we haven't talked about today about Atproto that you think is important for folks to know?
No, I think we covered everything that's important.
Well, damn. Okay. Cool. Cool. Well, admittedly, I have to say that I'm actually really excited to dive into some of this. And unfortunately, I was just telling my wife, like literally 2 hours ago, I was like, oh, I'm wrapping up a lot of projects. I'm going to be able to go ahead and, take it easy and, maybe relax a little bit. But apparently not. I'm going to have to go ahead and dive into Atproto now. Thanks, Dan. Um, because this is exciting. This is really exciting. I already have a whole bunch of ideas that I want to try. Design system related stuff, design token related stuff, my own personal stuff, like, making all, because I mean, from the design system standpoint, we're all about specifications and guidelines and stuff like that, and how to get data from one place to the other so that it's usable for people to use elsewhere. So like, I could see a huge thing about like, sharing design system knowledge, sharing design tokens, sharing expressions. Like, what does it mean to look like Home Depot as a shareable kind of data set? Like, maybe that's something that's interesting in there that people could try out. But
Yeah, that could be interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I think there could be a whole bunch of design related stuff in there that is places that we could certainly unlock. But yeah, so I think that could basically then wrap us up if we've covered what you wanted to cover on here. But is there anything that you want to plug that you're working on, where people could find you, any of that kind of stuff, to let people know what's going out there in the world, in the wide web?
Not really. I think like maybe one thing I would plug is if you tried using Blue Sky and you really don't like the built-in Discover feed, or like it's serving you stuff you don't want to see, highly recommend to check out, if you go to feeds and search for you, it's literally called For You.
Okay.
That's a feed, like in Blue Sky, feeds are pluggable for the same reason. They're just other consumers of the atmosphere. So you can run your own feed, like get all the data, run your own algorithms, and like serve it to people. So this is a feed that somebody's serving from their home, like from their gaming computer. But it's actually, I think, the best like algorithmic feed on Blue Sky. So you have to like some things for it to catch on to like what you're into. But I think it's better than the default one. And actually, like if you follow some Atproto people and like a few things, I think you'll get a really nice feed. Yeah, I'm plugging For You.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And actually, yeah, I didn't even consider like, effectively making your own algorithm, which I think also is something that's I think people would really perk up on, because that's at least in content terms, right? With people making content like I'm doing right now, it's always about fighting the algorithm, right? You're just like, okay, what does the algorithm want today? What do I got to do? I got to show a nipple or something. I'm not doing that, by the way. I just want to let people know. But what do I got to do to get some eyeballs on whatever the heck I'm doing, right? And if you are controlling the algorithm, there's something about that, right? That's some of the reason why, you try to make your own channels where you're trying to go to, hey, everybody go to Discord, or hey, everybody follow me on the newsletter or whatever. Like, you're trying to make your own space. But it sounds like, these are opportunities for people to also make their own space and kind of effectively take back the web, I think is a really good way to say this, right?
I mean, that's kind of what it is, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
The web is back.
The web is back. Hell yeah, the web is back. Well, Dan, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for kind of disambiguating this stuff for me. And for us, or anybody who's watching here, I didn't get any questions over here, so you're safe on that front. But again, thank you so much for being on the show. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, this was great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. And thank you for watching the show. I really appreciate that, of course. But before you go, please help out the show by smashing the like and subscribe button just to get notified when we go live. And feel free to continue the conversation on the official Design Systems Discord by going to discord.ds.house. There it is on the bottom right there. Play nice in those comments, and I'll see you on the internet. Bye.